Welcome, friend. I'm James, your host, and today, we're diving into another captivating episode. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and get ready for a powerful story that's sure to resonate. If something hits home, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's dive in. TIFU, by realizing I wasted my whole life at 42, chose the safe path and ended up miserable in Los Angeles. Hey Reddit, my name's Joe. I've been a lurker here for years, scrolling through other people's life stories and thinking, wow, that could have been me. Or more accurately, that is me. Today, I decided it's finally time to stop lurking and start talking. I'm not sure what I'm hoping to achieve by sharing this. Maybe it's for my own sake, maybe it's a desperate attempt to find someone who can relate. Or maybe I'm just hoping that someone out there will see this and think twice before making the same mistakes I did. So here it is, for what it's worth, my story of how I managed to waste 42 years of life chasing an illusion, all while the real me slowly faded away. I'm 42 years old, living in Los Angeles, and I'm a dentist. On the surface, it sounds like I've got it all together. I mean, who wouldn't want a comfortable house in the valley with views that stretch all the way to the ocean on a clear day? Who wouldn't like driving a sleek car up the winding roads of Mulholland Drive or having a family that looks picture perfect at a glance? My kids are dressed in the latest brands, we live in a gated community, and my wife could still pass for someone 10 years younger. To the outside world, I'm a success story, someone who has made it. But that's all a mirage. In reality, I've built my life on a foundation of other people's expectations, and it's collapsing. I look around at the life I've built, and it feels like I'm trapped inside a house of mirrors, where everything is distorted, where nothing is as it seems, and the only real thing is the emptiness stretching endlessly before me. For 15 years, I've spent every day peering into the mouths of strangers, filling cavities, whitening teeth, and doing my best to fix people's smiles while my own life decayed from the inside out. I'm not saying dentistry isn't a respectable profession, it is. It's just that I never wanted it. I never chose this life because it spoke to me or because it filled me with purpose. I chose dentistry like a person grabbing onto a piece of driftwood in a stormy sea. I needed something that would make my parents proud, something that society deemed respectable. It seemed like the kind of career that would guarantee me stability, financial security, and the approval of others. But in choosing this path, I gave up on the most important person's approval, my own. I thought if I followed the formula for success, good school, good job, steady career, I'd find happiness. But here I am, 42 years old, with a lifetime of regrets weighing on me like an anchor. When I was 20, I was someone else entirely. I was alive back then, truly alive. I had dreams that lit up my world, and a girl who shared them with me. I met my wife during my college years. We were both broke, living in a tiny studio apartment just off Sunset Boulevard, where the nights were filled with the buzz of the city. Our place was nothing special, just four walls and a view of a narrow alley, but it was ours. We didn't need much back then. We were in love, not just with each other, but with the life we were building together. We'd stay up all night talking about our dreams, traveling, changing the world, doing something meaningful. We had no real plan, but we had passion, and at the time, that felt like enough. We'd take long walks along Venice Beach, drink cheap wine while watching the sunset, and find ourselves making promises about the kind of life we'd have one day. It was all so simple and yet so perfect. But as I got closer to graduation, the pressure started building. It wasn't just coming from my parents, who always had this idea that I'd end up in a real profession, but from everywhere. My friends were all starting to land serious jobs, engineers, doctors, lawyers. It was like everyone was lining up at the start of some grand marathon, and I felt like I was falling behind. When I told my parents I was thinking of becoming a physics teacher, my dad laughed and said, "Physics? What are you going to do with that? Teach high school?" It wasn't said out of malice, but it cut deep. My mom chimed in, "You're so smart, Joe. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, even a dentist. Think about the kind of life you could give your family." They'd say things like, Do something practical. Think about your future. And with each word, my dreams seemed to shrink a little more. Teaching physics didn't seem practical. Starting a band didn't seem realistic. The expectations piled up until it felt like I didn't have a choice anymore. So, I went into dentistry. At first, I tried to convince myself that it was the right decision. I'd tell myself that I was helping people, that I was doing something valuable. But even from the start, it felt wrong. The classes were grueling, the hours were long, and the subject matter was dull. I'd sit through lectures on oral pathology, desperately trying to focus while my mind wandered to thoughts of what I could have been doing instead. I missed writing songs, I missed the feel of my guitar, I missed the thrill of solving a complex physics problem. But I buried those thoughts deep down because I was already too far in. I told myself it would all be worth it when I was making good money, when I was successful. But success is a tricky thing. The more I chased it, the farther away it seemed, and the less I recognized myself. My marriage wasn't immune to the changes either. My wife and I, who had once been partners in crime, began to drift apart. It happened slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, fewer spontaneous dates, fewer late-night talks. Our conversations started to revolve more around logistics than dreams. It was, who's picking up the kids, and did you pay the mortgage, instead of, where should we go next summer, or what song should we play at the open mic next weekend? We settled into a routine, but routines can be deadly. They have a way of turning vibrant lives into stale scripts. It wasn't long before I noticed her pulling away. She'd spend more time on her phone, less time in the same room as me. When I'd ask how her day was, she'd give me one-word answers, not because she was angry, but because there was just nothing left to say. Then, one day, I saw the messages. I hadn't been snooping, at least, I didn't think I was, but when her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter and I glanced at the screen, I saw his name. It wasn't a name I recognized, but it was in a message that read, "Can't wait to see you tonight." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I picked up her phone, and there they were, texts, calls, pictures, everything. There was no denying it. She was cheating on me. I should have confronted her then and there, but I didn't. I was scared. Scared of what it would mean for my kids, scared of what it would mean for me. She'd been my rock, the one person I thought I could count on. But now it was clear I'd lost her too, and maybe I'd been losing her for years without even realizing it. And what about my kids? They're 10 and 14 now, and I can't help but feel like I'm a stranger to them. They're growing up in front of me, but I'm not really there. I'm either too busy at work or too exhausted when I get home. I try to be involved, to be the kind of dad who shows up to their games and school events, but it feels forced. It's like I'm playing a role I was never meant to play. I missed my daughter's first dance recital because I was stuck at the office handling an emergency patient. I wasn't there for my son's first soccer goal because I was running late from a staff meeting. When I do show up, I'm distracted, checking my phone for work emails or thinking about the patient I'll have to see first thing the next morning. I'm physically present, but emotionally checked out. I know they see it too. I see it in the way they hesitate to share things with me, as if they're afraid they'll be bothering me. I think the hardest part is realizing how numb I've become. There was a time when I felt everything deeply with joy, sorrow, excitement, fear. Now, everything just feels muted. I go through my day on autopilot, feeling neither particularly happy nor particularly sad. It's like I'm stuck in this gray area where nothing feels real, where every day is just a variation of the last. I try to rekindle old passions, but it's like trying to start a fire with wet wood. I picked up my guitar the other day, the same one I used to play when I was in college. I strummed a few chords, but my fingers were stiff and the sound felt hollow. I wanted to feel something, anything, but there was just emptiness. It's like I've spent so long numbing myself to the life I didn't want that I've forgotten how to feel at all. And you know what's messed up? The happiest part of my life wasn't when I was making six figures, living in a nice house, or driving a luxury car. It was when I was struggling to get by, selling jars of homemade strawberry jam at a farmer's market and tutoring rich kids in physics just to make rent. I'd wake up on Saturday mornings before the sun was up, pack my old beat-up car with boxes of jam, and head out to the market. It was simple work, but there was something honest about it. I'd chat with customers, laugh with other vendors, and even make a little music with a street performer who played the harmonica. Back then, I had practically nothing in terms of material wealth, but I felt alive. I didn't need much because my life was full of experiences and moments that actually meant something. I had dreams and, more importantly, I had hope. The future was wide open, and I believed I could make something of it. But somewhere along the line, I traded all of that for what I thought I was supposed to want: the big house, the secure job, the status symbols that everyone else seemed to chase. I started measuring success by the size of my bank account and the square footage of my home. I let myself get sucked into the mindset that says if you're not climbing the corporate ladder or stacking up accomplishments, you're not doing it right. I let go of the things that made me me, and I didn't even realize it until it was too late. Now, I'm left wondering what the hell happened to that 20-year-old kid who used to get excited over a sunset or a new guitar riff. It's like I'm a different person, living a life that belongs to someone else. The worst part is, I know I can't blame anyone but myself. Sure, my parents pushed me toward a real career, and yes, my friends all took traditional paths that made it seem like the only sensible option. But I was the one who made the decision. I was the one who ignored the voice in my head telling me to chase what I loved. I was the one who decided that financial security was more important than personal fulfillment. And now, every morning when I walk into my practice, put on that white coat, and greet my first patient with a fake smile, I'm reminded of the choices I made. I've become a character in a life I didn't want to live, and the years keep slipping by faster and faster. I've gained 20 kilos, developed chronic back pain, and find myself constantly exhausted. I used to be fit and active, but now I can barely motivate myself to go for a jog around the neighborhood. Even when I do, my mind is somewhere else, thinking about work, thinking about bills, thinking about how my wife is spending her evening with another man. The pain isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and it's spreading like a disease. I feel trapped in a cage of my own making, and it doesn't matter how big my house is or how nice my car looks because the walls of that cage are closing in on me. My wife's affair was just the tip of the iceberg, the thing that finally shattered the illusion I'd been clinging to. When I first saw the messages, I was in denial. I told myself it was probably nothing, just a harmless flirtation. But as the weeks went by, the signs became too obvious to ignore: the late nights out, the sudden business trips, the way she would turn away whenever I tried to touch her. I could have confronted her, demanded to know the truth, but deep down, I already knew. She had checked out of our marriage a long time ago, just like I had checked out of my own life. In a way, I didn't blame her. She married a man who was alive, who had dreams and passions, but over the years, I turned into a shadow of that person. Who could blame her for looking elsewhere? But I didn't confront her. I didn't say anything because I was too afraid of what would happen next. If she left, would I be able to keep up the facade of the successful dentist, the family man? How would I explain it to my kids? How would I explain it to myself? I've spent so long building this life that I'm terrified of watching it all fall apart. But the truth is, it's already falling apart, and I'm just pretending I don't see the cracks. I'm scared of starting over. I'm scared of being alone. I'm scared of admitting that I wasted the one life I was given chasing something that never even mattered to me. Sometimes, I fantasize about just leaving it all behind, quitting my job, selling the house, and disappearing somewhere far away, where nobody knows me. I imagine starting over as a different person, living a simpler life, maybe opening a small bookstore or a music shop. I picture myself in a quiet town somewhere, playing guitar on the weekends, teaching kids to love physics not because it's useful, but because it's fascinating. I think about what it would be like to wake up and not feel a sense of dread, to not have my entire day planned out for me by obligations that feel more like chains. I imagine it, but I don't know if I have the courage to actually do it. It's one thing to think about walking away from everything, and it's another to actually take that first step. And then there are my kids. I think about how my decisions would affect them, how they might view me if I suddenly uprooted our lives because their dad was having a midlife crisis. I want to be there for them. I want to be the dad who shows up to their games and actually cheers, the dad who listens to them talk about their day without mentally checking out. I know I've failed them in so many ways, but walking away feels like failing them again. So, I stay. I stay in this life that doesn't fit me anymore because I feel like I owe it to them, even if it's killing me. I don't know if they would understand. I don't know if I would understand. I'm not even sure what I'd say if I were to leave. How do you explain to your family that you've been living a lie, that the life you've built is not the one you wanted? How do you tell your wife you know about the affair and that you can't even be angry because you know, in a twisted way, you brought this on yourself? I can't even bring myself to start that conversation because once I do, there's no turning back. Once I open that door, everything could unravel, and I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of chaos. Lately, I've been thinking about taking a sabbatical. I've read stories of people who took time off from their careers to find themselves. It always sounded so cliché to me, like something rich people do when they're bored. But now, I'm starting to understand why someone would need to step away from their life to remember who they are. I don't even know if I could take time off without everything falling apart, my practice, my finances, my relationships. But maybe it's already falling apart, and this is the only way to salvage what's left. The other day, I found myself sitting in my car outside my office, unable to go inside. I just sat there, staring at the building, and for a moment, I thought about driving away and never coming back. I thought about where I would go, what I would do, who I would become. But then reality snapped me back. I remembered the mortgage payment, the appointments, the responsibilities that wouldn't just disappear because I was having a crisis. So, I took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked inside to start another day of pretending. I've been living on autopilot for so long that I don't even know where to start if I wanted to change. Do I leave my wife? Quit my job? Sell the house? What if I do all that and still feel empty? What if I burn down my entire life and find out there's nothing left underneath? I've been stuck in this limbo for so long that I don't even know if there's a way out anymore. I don't know if it's too late for me to change. I'm not young anymore. I'm not full of boundless energy and hope. But I also know I can't keep living like this, slowly dying inside while putting on a happy face for everyone else. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. I'd chase my dreams recklessly, take the risks that scared me, and embrace the uncertainty that comes with not having a safe career. I'd have pursued music, even if I wasn't good enough to make a living from it. I'd have become a teacher, even if it didn't pay well, because at least I'd have felt like I was making a difference. I'd have taken the time to travel, to experience the world, to see things that expanded my mind instead of staying in one place, slowly narrowing my world to the size of a dental chair. I'd have lived a life full of color and noise, not this dull gray existence where every day blends into the next. To anyone reading this who's at a crossroads, don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't let other people's expectations dictate your life. Don't chase stability and security at the cost of your happiness. It's not worth it. You only get one life, and once those years are gone, you can't get them back. Trust me, I know. I'm living proof of that. I've wasted decades doing what I thought I should do, and now I'm left with nothing but regrets.